Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this stream news summary from Moscow program. Today is 2nd of September. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public is paying attention to, and I hope you will find news segment informative and useful, interesting. And if so, dear friends, please like the video and leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm and reach a wider audience. Also, dear friends, as always, after news segment, I will join community chat for a little while. And well, if you want to support my work, if you want to help me basically save this project, I remind you that you can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal and Boosty platforms. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page that I have on Boosty, where I'm publishing regular extra contents. Yesterday, for example, I had a like 40 minutes long second news update there, and I will try to do it on every weekday from Monday to Friday. So there's going to be a lot of content on my Patreon and Boosty pages. Also, dear friends, you can use the super chat feature on Rumble now during the stream and highlight your question or commentary that you might want to be highlighted during the stream. And you can become premium subscriber, by the way, on Rumble, where my channel is monetized. This is it when it comes to intro, I guess. And one more announcement, dear friends. Yesterday, one of the members of community suggested to me to publish a news segment separately after the live stream because, well, allegedly, some members of community, maybe new members or people that are not even subscribed, are finding it difficult to look at the live streams. I don't know how that is possible, but well, I received suggestion to publish a news segment separately, and I will try this week. I will publish separately news segments after stream. Maybe it will work. I don't know. And also maybe I will publish a question time also, these community chat parts too, as a separate video. So if you want to just take a look at what topics we discussed in the community chat, it might you will have opportunity to just take a look at their videos. So yes, this is it for intro. Now let's go through some news. And well, as I did last few days, I'm going to start with news from China, where yesterday and day before, Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit was taking place, biggest summit of this organization since its creation. Delegations from over 20 countries, including heads of the states, were participating. Russian delegation was very busy during this two-day summit. Russian president had numerous meetings, by the way, with different leaders from all over the world, basically, that are members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization or partners of their organization. I believe Russian president had a meeting with the Prime Minister of India, Modi, several meetings, including today, by the way, with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, with the leader of Turkey, leader of Iran, Vietnam, Armenia, many others, by the way. And of course, delegations, Russian delegation included, were very active to negotiating with their colleagues from other delegations. And on the matter of these talks, dear friends, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, I will remind you news that I did share yesterday in a second update on Patreon, that the organization made decision to establish a development bank for Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In a way, I believe it was done in a BRICS. So we clearly can say now that certain steps definitely has been made by BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization to create alternative financial and banking system that is desperately needed in this world due to extreme weaponization of Western financial and banking system. This is our first steps, I will say. Definitely more needs to be done. We need alternative worldwide payment systems, so that not just member states of BRICS or Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but consumers from all over the world, by the way, would have opportunity to receive cards and to do payments, by the way, for whatever, for goods or services or whatever the case, right? And hopefully in upcoming several years at least, we will finally get these alternatives, right, that we don't really have right now. So this is important development, obviously. Also, dear friends, even though Russian president was very busy and having meeting with many leaders from different countries, there was rumors that were circulating on internet that maybe Russian president will have a meeting with the Azerbaijani president Ilham Aliyev. Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, made an announcement about it. He was even asked about it, basically, and he said that, well, theoretically, it was possible that yesterday Russian president would have a meeting with Aliyev, but I did not see no reports about such a meeting taking place. And if you remember in previous updates, I did a comment on this matter, and I said I shared my skepticism that Russian president will meet with Aliyev, because I think Aliyev burned down all the bridges, right, that there was. And first of all, because he escalated. Azerbaijan leadership escalated with Russia, not because Baku has any issues with Moscow, or that was the basement for the escalation, but because London demanded this escalation. It was London's influence of British elites on Baku, due to which this escalation happened. Pretext of escalation was used developments in one of the Russian cities, when Russian law enforcement officers were targeting some ethnic criminal gang that was related to Azerbaijan, but that was only pretext. In reality, of course, this escalation was ordered from London, and Moscow cannot close their eyes on that. Of course, Moscow understands perfectly well what was going on, and therefore, even if meeting with Putin and Aliyev would take place, I would not expect actual warming up of relationships between leadership of two countries, and even meeting did not take place. So unfortunately, I guess my prediction is correct, and until Aliyev regime exists in Azerbaijan, we would not see normalization of the ties between the two republics. That's my forecast. Let's see how correct or incorrect I am on this matter. Also, dear friends, when it comes to Azerbaijan, foreign ministry of this republic yesterday shared information that and claimed that Council of Ministers of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, on September 1st, that is yesterday, decided to terminate a Minsk process on the Karabakh settlement. I did not see any confirmation of this news from OSCE itself, but probably this information is correct, because leadership of Azerbaijani militaries committed ethnic cleansing in the Nagorno-Karabakh region and forced out about 200,000 Armenians from their homeland. And from Azerbaijani side, there is no more issues with the Karabakh settlement. There is no one there left, literally, to negotiate with. And therefore, based on this crime that was committed by Azerbaijani leadership and the new realities on the ground, it might be the case that OSCE will decide to terminate this Minsk group. Let's see if any additional information will become available on that in upcoming days. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, Russian president from Tianjin, where Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit was held, moved to Beijing, capital of China, and almost whole day today, by the way, we are receiving reports from Russian media about meetings between Russian president and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. This is not the first meeting in last several days, but now today there was a bilateral talks between the sides, so it was not just a exchange of opinions, but actual big summit of the leadership of two countries, and very important agreements were reached during this conversation. I saw many videos and photos, by the way, after official part of the meeting. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin went to have a break, tea time, let's say, right? After that, they walk around the residency and then continue to exchange opinions on some major topics, obviously. And well, it's all good, by the way. Both sides demonstrated the ties between the two countries are on highest possible level at this point, definitely on unprecedented level. And as I said, there are many important agreements were reached, by the way, between two leaders, between two countries. And one of the agreements, which is, really, really important, is that Moscow and Beijing signed a memorandum on the construction of Power of Siberia to gas pipeline. Negotiations about this pipeline was taking place for years, by the way. Basically, straight after first pipeline, Power of Siberia was built, first infrastructure, right? Well, due to attempt of Chinese side to reach an agreement with Russia to buy Russian gas on very low prices, basically on the same prices that we have here in Russia, on the domestic Russian prices, Moscow could not agree on that, right? And these negotiations lasted for many, many years, not because of some technical issues in regards to building the pipeline itself, but because of this, mainly because of the issue of price. And I guess yet another prediction is becoming reality. If you remember, during the recent 12-day war, when Iran was attacked by Israel and US, I did say that this is definitely a grave warning for China not to be dependent heavily on Middle Eastern energy sources, because, of course, they are realizing that our globalist Western ruling class will try again to destabilize their Middle East and to cut navigation first in Persian Gulf, while provoking a regional war on sectarian and ethnic lines, and then to cut off China as a result from Middle Eastern energy sources. And I said straight away that most likely after these developments, Chinese side will take negotiations with Russia in regards to energy projects much more seriously, and they will come up with proposals that will be acceptable for Russian side this time around. And I think that's exactly what happened, and China will buy Russian gas on prices that there is on the market. So this is very important developments, and after Power of Siberia, I'm quite sure more energy projects gonna follow, dear friends. Now let me give you some details. Russia and China have signed a memorandum on their construction of the Power of Siberia to gas pipeline. Gazprom CEO Alexei Miller stated, we have a quote from him, based on the public statements made by the leaders of three countries, Russia, China, and Mongolia. And Mongolia is there because this pipeline has to go through Mongolia, by the way, to reach China. A legally binding memorandum was signed today on the construction of Power of Siberia to gas pipeline and the Union Eastern Transit gas pipeline through Mongolia. He said the Power of Siberia is project for gas supply from Western Siberian fields to China via Mongolia at the rate of about 50 billion cubic meters per year. The contract is expected to be for 30 years, by the way. Once contract is signed, it's going to be for decades, right? So that's why negotiations on price was taking this long. But yet again, due to recent Middle Eastern crisis, I think Beijing realized that our Chinese energy company that is negotiating on behalf of Beijing, they recognize that time is running out. And I guess they come up with acceptable for Moscow proposals. Miller, head of Gazprom, noted that the project of this scale does not allow for quick solutions. Yes, he's highlighting basically that negotiations on the project was taking very long. Gazprom and CMPC, this is CMPC is a Chinese energy company, also agreed to increase pumping transfer of Russian gas via the Power of Siberia pipeline that already exists from 38 to 44 billion cubic meters per year. The parties also signed an agreement to increase supply volumes via Far East route from 10 to 12 billion cubic meters. So yet again, by the way, clearly we are seeing acceleration of the cooperation between China and Russia in regards to energy sector. And well, I guess European states gonna look at this news and say, I mean, damn, we should have this gas, right? But they cannot, right? And I said, dear friends, as time goes by, due to tremendously hostile policies of the globalist controlled European regimes that destroy basically cooperation of between European states and Russia, including in energy fields. If a situation even changes in Europe after, let's say, 10 years or 15 years, right? And if European states will even ask Moscow for supplies of whatever, it could be gas or oil or some other commodities or anything, literally. Well, and even if Moscow would want to assist European states to deal with crises that they are destined to end up in, these European states, well, I guess all the capacities or most of the capacities, export capacities of Russia will be already booked by countries from global south, and Moscow will just have no capabilities left, by the way, to sell anything to Europeans or much of anything, right? So that's one of the reasons why I'm saying time and time again that give it to 20-30 years, by the way, and European part of Eurasian continent is going to end up in a very dark place and either become a loosely relevant part of this world or maybe even completely irrelevant on a geopolitical scale, by the way, I'm talking about, right? This is absolutely inevitable at this point. Also, dear friends, on top of this very important agreement on Power of Siberia 2, China and Russia signed more than 20 documents on cooperation. So it's not just energy field, not just energy cooperation, but also cooperation in many other directions, including AI, by the way, which is, of course, very important. And there are many countries worldwide that are paying great attention to AI developments. And Russia and China are no exception, of course. China probably leading this field, are more developed in this segment than Russia. But we also, have a great specialist. We also investing. Russia is also increasing investments, by the way, into AI. So therefore, this cooperation definitely will be beneficial for Russia and beneficial for China too, I guess. So that's when it comes to this news from China. Important news, isn't it, dear friends? And well, before I continue with a dozen of other news, dear friends, this segment, let me once again highlight that this project, this media project is completely subscriber funded. That is only exists as long as I have your support. Excuse me, your assistant. And if you like my work, if you want to help basically to maintain this project, please consider to support with donations. You can do it through PayPal or Boosty platform, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page, dear friends, where I have, as I said, extra content, exclusive content on regular basis. Links are on this video in the description box in the pinned comment. And please pay attention to Patreon, especially because in order this project to be in a more or less safe place, our communities on Patreon and Boosty needs to double at least, right? And hopefully more and more members of community, our bigger community on YouTube and Rumble, will consider to join us on a Patreon or Boosty as alternative. And dear friends, you can use your level of monthly support there. It starts from $5, and then it's up to you. It could be $5, $10, 20, or even higher than that if you can afford that. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And even though lately I become actively promoting my Patreon, unfortunately, just one new member joined our community there, and hopefully this situation will change. Just please consider, dear friends, because this is a full-time job that I'm doing, and to be able to stay this active, I need to have some funds to pay the bills, for God's sake. So okay, that's about this advertising. Also, of course, Rumble. By the way, my channel is monetized on Rumble, and you can use super chat feature there, or you can become a premium subscriber on Rumble. That's being said, dear friends, let me continue with some other news. And RIA Novosti is reporting that one of the focus of long-range strikes by Kiev regime for the Kiev regime and its Western backers was Rostov. By the way, they are usually or mostly targeting southern regions of the Russian Federation, and last night was no exception. We have a report that air defense systems shut down 13 Ukrainian drones. And unfortunately, there are reports that some drones did manage to bypass our air defense systems and hit residential apartments. 2 high-rise residential apartments were hit, and by miracle, no one was killed, but 4 people were hospitalized, received injuries. And the reports are that residents of those high-rise apartment buildings, more than 300 people, by the way, had to be evacuated. Yet another terrorist attack of Kiev regime. I'm telling you, dear friends, one might say, you know what, this is just an error. I mean, when one drone attacks some residential area, this argument may work. But when 2 drones are targeting high-rise apartment buildings, I mean, chances that this was an error is next to none, right? This is intentional attacks on Russian civilians, and that's this terror campaign, by the way, is the one that I predicted that will happen, and the UK will lead this terror campaign, and that's exactly what is happening. It's London, by the way. If you're wondering which NATO country is behind this terror campaign, it's London. I blame London for that, and they comes, by the way, for Russian retaliation, and the citizens of UK should know that it was not Russia that started this, right? But Russia has every right to retaliate, and they comes for retaliation. RT is also reporting that, Zelensky is threatening with a more long-range strikes, dear friends. I reported about it yesterday, and also yesterday afternoon, news came that there was an urgent sort of a NATO-Ukraine council meeting in Brussels, and I'm quite sure one of the main topics of discussion during that meeting was this terror campaign that London is leading against Russia. And the details are not known. But of course, Russian side pays close attention to developments and will be ready to take action on whatever scale these actions are necessary. But unfortunately, we have on daily basis more and more news that are confirming that globalists and globalist control terrorist regimes basically all over the Europe, and that's what they are. They are terrorist regimes, by the way. They are not about de-escalating anything. They are all about prolongation of this proxy war that they are waging against Russia. And yesterday's meeting in Brussels between this terrorist regime, European terrorist regime, and their proxy terrorist regime in Ukraine was exactly about that. Further terrorist attacks, long-range terrorist attacks, and so on. TASS news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that, and dear friends, we should keep in mind that it's NATO. It is very important, isn't it? Of course, Western propaganda outlets, Western so-called media is brainwashing majority of public in the Western countries, blaming everything on Russia, isn't it? and painting picture that West is a sort of angel and innocent, which is not the case. We all know that, isn't it? But nevertheless, we should keep in mind that it's a collective West that is escalating, and when time comes for Russian retaliations, everyone should understand that this was a retaliation, not the initiation of their hostilities. And this day is inevitable. This day will come. I have no doubts about that. Meanwhile, TASS News Agency is reporting, based on a military expert from LPR, Andrei Marochka, that Ukrainian armed forces lost almost 54,000 military personnel and also mercenaries, foreign mercenaries, in the battles near the LPR over the summer time. So this is just one sector, by the way, LPR direction, where Kiev regime during the last 3 months lost 54,000 military personnel, and this direction was not really that active as other sectors are. For example, sectors in Kharkov direction or in DPR, right? So 54 tremendous losses, of course, tremendous losses on side of Kiev regime. Also, dear friends, and LPR, by the way, is 99 point like something percent is completely liberated from hostile forces. It's only like forestry areas on the borderline of the republic where some DRGs still might operate, right? Otherwise, Turkey regime's forces and NATO mercenaries have no control over even single settlement in LPR at this point. Also interesting news from TASS News Agency that operators of the Rubicon Center suppressed more than 44,000 FPV drones of the Ukrainian armed forces since the beginning of this year. And by the way, number itself is quite telling, isn't it? This is just one Russian special purpose unit, Rubicon, that operates with the drones itself, right? And also engaged in a suppression of the enemy drones. And 44,000 drones of Western backed terrorist regime of Zelensky were neutralized by radio electronic warfare of this quite a famous group, by the way, that Rubicon is. They are publishing literally on daily basis more and more videos of their operations when they are eliminating enemy manpower, military equipment, and so on. And this information clearly gives you understanding on the intensity of the clashes, by the way, on the battlefield. 44,000 FPV drones that was neutralized just by one special purpose unit of the Russian forces. And this is just since the beginning of this year. Overall numbers, of course, are just unimaginable, right? But we have more details, dear friends, from this report. Let me go through some details here. Operators of the Rubicon Center have suppressed more than 44,000 enemy FPV drones in the zone of special military operation over the course of a year, which is not yet ended, right? It's several months more before a new year, and this number, 44,000, probably will get to 50,000 or more. And this information was shared with public by a Russian Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Krivoruchko. We have a quote from his statement. In just 1 year, the center has destroyed, this Rubicon Center has destroyed more than 5,000 different weapons and the military equipment of the enemy with drones that Rubicon itself uses to target enemy. In addition to that, 5,000 destroyed enemy equipment, military equipment, over 3,700 all-terrain vehicles used by the Ukrainian armed forces to transport personnel and military cargo was also destroyed. 4,000 means of communication, electronic warfare system, radars, and on top of that, 13.5 thousand military infrastructure facilities have been destroyed. More than 44,000 FPV drones have been suppressed, enemy FPV drones. So, well, Rubicon, as you can see, different, not just suppressing enemy drones, but also using drones to attack enemy, and they cause tremendous damage to hostile side. You can imagine, by the way, how difficult and extraordinary battles are right now, isn't it? Due to these new elements in a high intensity warfare, when drones are literally everywhere, right? And camouflage and anti drone warfare, that is radio electronic warfare, camouflage, and all the other special means have extra additional importance, because how are you going to move around the area, by the way, when at any given time there is numerous enemy drones in the sky. And no, despite these developments, I think Russian troops did manage to deal with these new developments on the battlefield, and the Russian forces are moving forward, isn't it? Literally on daily basis, Russian troops are improving their positions on the battlefield. So Russian troops adapted to this new type of warfare quite effectively. In some sense, Kiev regime's forces did also adapt it, but that's it when it comes to this world, by the way. With the exception of Russian militaries and whatever forces Kiev regime still have left, no other militaries in this world have experience to basically operate in these conditions, right? So when I said Russian armed forces, not probably, for sure, by the way, are most capable forces in the world right now, I actually mean that. Because we have experience, our troops have experience that is needed to operate in this new type of warfare conditions, while Western, for example, militaries have no freaking idea what even high intensity conflict is. Nothing to be said about this drone warfare and new tactics that needs to be developed to operate in such conditions, isn't it? Also, dear friends, TASS news agency is reporting that Ukrainian armed forces lost yet another Patriot battery, basically as a result of Russian long-range precise strikes. This report comes from yesterday, September 1st. The Russian militaries destroyed the cabin of control cabin, basically, of Patriot battery, and also one of the launchers. You all know, of course, that these batteries, air defense systems batteries, have a control cabin from where all their operations are conducted, and there is quite a number of launchers too. But if you have no control cabin, those launchers, I mean, they are useless. You're not gonna track nothing. You're not gonna target nothing. It's useless, right? You need this control cabin, right? Because it's there that information from radar is being worked on, and their targeting data was passed to missiles. So quite effectively, with this successful strike by Russian forces, yet another Patriot battery of the Kiev regime was neutralized, and God knows when NATO countries will be able to transfer another control cabin for this Patriot, if ever, right? Also, dear friends, I want to pay your attention to this interesting topic that become quite active in the Russian segment of media, at least. And the topic is that during the recent meeting between head of Russian General Staff, General Gerasimov, and other leaders of Russian militaries, there was a map. There was a map on the wall on the right side of Gerasimov, where Nikolaev and Odessa regions was depicted not as a part of Ukraine. And of course, speculations began. What is going on? What is this map is about? You can see on your screen right now, dear friends, this picture when on the wall there is a map, and I can give you a little close-up on that map. Just give me a second, dear friends. So this is close view, it's difficult to read anything. Difficult to read anything, by the way, there, but at least based on contours, by the way, we can understand the areas, right? So here it's Crimea, right? This is Odessa region on a left side towards the Romania, or this is on towards the western direction. This is Odessa region, of course, and the Nikolaev region, by the way, right? Here, Nikolaev region, and here the rest is Odessa region. And as you see on the map, by the way, there is two signs. This sign is Ukraine, and well, these two regions, Nikolaev and Odessa, are not depicted as a part of Ukraine. Also, Dnipropetrovsk region is not depicted. Or it is depicted. But anyways, Nikolaev and Odessa regions are not part of Ukraine on this map, right? And speculations began what that means. Is there any plans to liberate these regions also? And of course, there should be plans to liberate these regions too, because you know my take on the future of Ukraine, isn't it? I said a million times at this point, probably, that once this conflict will end, most likely western parts of Ukraine will be claimed by western neighbors of this creation of Bolsheviks. Poland, Hungary, and Romania. Although Slovakia might also have some claims, potentially even Bulgaria, by the way. And rest of their territory, by the way, that is historical Russian land, will be either completely or partially incorporated in Russia after referendums. And even if Kiev and surrounding regions, couple of regions, will maintain a landlocked quasi-statehood status, only in an exclusive zone of Russian influence. That's it. That's the future for this Bolsheviks creation that Ukraine is, right? And I'm still on the very same position, by the way. I was saying this during, when our special military operation began, and I'm saying very same stuff right now. And this map on that we are talking about is definitely confirming that, well, I have a point, by the way. I have a point. And of course, Russian president not gonna say much about it, or maybe even press spokesman of the Russian president will be asked about it, and he will divert question to defense ministry. And I don't think defense ministry gonna elaborate what this means, what message they wanted to send, and they clearly put this map there, world to see, isn't it? But I think what this map shows is a potential future of this creation of Bolsheviks. And dear friends, on this very matter, question was asked to one of the Russian MPs that is in the defense committee, I believe, and he spoke about buffer zones, that Russia has to create buffer zones in Nikolaev, Odessa, and some other regions, and potentially this map was related to that. Although, of course, only defense ministry or Kremlin can actually give us answers on that. But nevertheless, let me give you some details on the statements of this Russian MP. The absence of the Odessa and the Nikolaev region on the map of Ukraine placed behind the chief of the general staff of the Russian armed forces, Valery Gerasimov, is connected with the creation of a security zone. The State Duma Defense Committee believes. This was reported by the member of the State Duma Defense Committee, Viktor Sobolev. And we have a quote from him: "We must completely liberate those subjects of the Russian Federation that, according to the constitution, become a part of Russia." And this is, of course, Kherson, Zaporozhye, DPR, and LPR. And on top of that, create a security zone. This includes the Sumy, Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Nikolaev, and Odessa regions, said this MP. And well, he would not say stuff like that if there was no discussions on the matter, or potentially even if decisions have not been made on the matter. And Russian president himself did spoke about the necessity of creation of the so-called buffer zones, right? So maybe that's the direction, and most likely that is the direction that we will move forward. And after all, dear friends, of course, Nikolaev and Odessa region will be liberated. It's a Russian territory, by the way. It's a Russian people that lives there, people that see themselves as a part of Russian world, and they have to be in Russia. Same goes for Dnipropetrovsk region, same goes for Kharkov region, Sumy and Chernigov regions too, at least partially, by the way, right? But before incorporating these territories, of course, referendums have to take place, and people that live there, they have to have a say, right, in their future. And this can be done, by the way, either through force, and Russia can do it and will do it, or this can be done through political means, through negotiations, right? Kiev regime, or let's say globalists and globalist controlled terrorist regimes in Europe, they can capitulate now. They will capitulate anyways, isn't it? They will capitulate anyways. So they can make it easier for themselves. They can capitulate now. And if so, of course, their proxy Kiev regime will do the same. They will withdraw whatever forces they have in Kherson, Zaporozhye regions, DPR, and LPR. And after that, we will have good enough ground to have a meaningful talks, actually. And one of the demands that Moscow will most likely have, by the way, after a topic of legitimacy of their leadership in Kiev will be resolved, and that topic needs to be resolved too. After that, of course, one of the demands from Russian side will be to hold the referendums under the UN control, by the way. Let's bring UN in, right? I know UN is no longer an institution that, is respected that much in this world, but we don't have anything else, right? That's all we have, UN. So let's bring UN observers, right? Let's do referendums in all the regions of that Kiev formally will be still in control, and let the people decide what they want. Do they want to stay in this creation as a part of this creation of the Bolsheviks on the name of Ukraine, or maybe, in western parts of Ukraine, for example, in Lvov or some other cities, some people might say, you know what, let's join Poland. For example, just saying, Poland will reclaim those areas anyways, with or without agreement of locals. In Transcarpathia, I'm quite sure, by the way, Hungarians, ethnic Hungarians that live there, hundreds of thousands, they will vote to join Hungary. So let them have a say in their future, right? And so people in Odessa region, Nikolaev region, Kharkov, Sumy, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava, and all the others, in Kiev, by the way, they should have a say too. And if they will decide that they don't want to be a part of this nonsensical creation of Bolsheviks, and they want to either go independent or join Russian Federation, then, well, let's listen to them, right? And accept their will. Is it democratic enough? I think so. And maybe this is the way that situation will develop, although this is if globalists and globalist-controlled terrorist regimes in Europe will capitulate now, right? And their proxy Kiev regime. Otherwise, well, Russia will have no option but to continue special military operation and liberate all of the Russian territory. And when it comes to Western Ukraine, then, I don't think that many people here in Russia cares about Western Ukraine. Let the Poland deal with it, right? And Hungary and Romania. Let them deal with Western Ukraine, with all their freaking fascists and the Nazis that have a stronghold there. That's it. Anyways, dear friends, globalist and globalist control regimes in Europe continue to come up with all sorts of provocations to derail any chances for a peace in Ukraine. And yesterday, by the way, no other than Financial Times come up with yet another false narrative. I guess as a part of a new media campaign to create a ground for a false flag operation. And well, claim was from Financial Times, by the way, and this report was then formally confirmed by Brussels and also Bulgaria, that plane with Ursula von der Leyen, head of European Commission, was forced to land in Bulgaria using paper maps after Russian electronic warfare systems allegedly jammed its navigation. And this is I said straight away yesterday when I saw this news and during the second update on my Patreon, that this is a false information, false narrative, of course, Bob. Of course, right? And one should ask question, then why they are pushing this false narrative? What is the behind it? And I tell you, dear friends, what my opinion is. I think globalists and globalist-controlled terrorist regimes in Europe are planning false flag operation to bring down plane, potentially with maybe civilian plane they want to bring down, or maybe plane with some delegation, either from US. And I remind you, Trump plans to visit UK in September, if I remember correctly. So who knows, by the way, I mean, globalists don't want Trump to be in the White House. They might actually take some action, bring down that plane of Trump and then blame it on Russia, said that, well, there was a Russian warship somewhere in Atlantics and they jammed that US president's plane, Air Force One or whatever that is. Or maybe they would not dare to go that far, globalists and their controlled terrorist regimes in Europe, first of all, London, Paris, and Berlin. Maybe they would not go that far, and they will bring down some plane from with some European delegation, and then blame Russia on that. They will do anything, by the way. They will do anything to keep US in this proxy war against Russia, because they know perfectly well without US, by the way, they will last only like several months, max 1 year. That's it, man. And they will run out from of not just money, not necessarily money, but they will run out of weapons, by the way, to supply Kiev regime. If Kiev regime on its behalf will be able still to forcefully mobilize at least 10, 15, 20,000 people, right, and kidnap them basically from the streets and throw into trenches. So we should keep in mind, dear friends, that this type of false narratives are not created for nothing, not created randomly. Clearly, there is preparations for a false flag operation on part of Western secret services, European secret services, and maybe CIA will assist them in that, to bring down plane, because U.S. intelligence community, even Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, head of U.S. intelligence, even she said recently that deep state has penetrated the intelligence community big time. So no, we cannot be sure that CIA, for example, will operate under the orders of Washington. They have their own agenda, right? So they might actually help secret services of UK, for example, and some other European states to bring down some plane in upcoming weeks or months, and then blame that on Russia. And that's why they are coming up with these nonsensical, crazy, false narratives that, well, Russia jammed their plane of Ursula. Who the hell is Ursula, by the way? Why would Russia waste any resources to harass her, for example, or to bring down plane that she is on the board? No, man. For Russia, more such stupid people are in charge in Brussels, formally at least, the better, right? We should understand that more such stupid people as Ursula von der Leyen, as Kaja Kallas, and other freaking morons are in position of power in Brussels, the better, because they will destroy EU finally. They will accelerate this destruction of the EU, and due to their criminal actions, Eurosceptics are on the rise, right? So why would Russia do anything to remove these elements from Brussels? It's counterproductive, isn't it? But nevertheless, this is definitely the topic that we should pay attention to, because they are planning some massive provocations, by the way, all sorts of false flags, all sorts of provocations in the Baltics with the strikes deep into Russia, and also potentially with terrorist attacks on planes, right? Either with the civilians or with some politicians, Europeans or Americans, whatever. And then they will try to blame this escalation on Russia. Hopefully it would not work, but definitely preventive measures are needed to be taken. And I hope today Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation will make a clear statement that this is a clearly provocation and basically preparation for the false flag that they might do after that. And by the way, we know these claims from Brussels and Sofia, capital of Bulgaria, are false because, for example, first of all, it makes no sense, right? And I explained why. And secondly, flight radar source debunked this claim because they were able to see a plane of that Ursula was on board quite clearly, and there was a very strong GPS signal. So no one was jamming, no GPS. It's complete false, by the way. So flight tracking website Flightradar24 has refuted allegations made by several media outlets and EU officials that the plane of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was subjected to GPS signal jamming. The aircraft that carried EU Commission chief to Bulgaria on Sunday showed a good GPS signal quality along its entire route, the monitoring service wrote on X on Monday, right? So, I mean, and they are tracking planes all over, by the way, right? As long as plane has its responders on, they can track the plane. They can understand is GPS signal is good or not. And they rebooked this claim of Brussels and Sofia too. The flight arrived only 9 minutes later than scheduled, by the way. And their initial claim of this propaganda meme that Financial Times is and these globalist puppets basically was that, well, due to this GPS jamming, Ursula's plane was forced to fly around their airport for hour also, and they were using some paper maps and stuff like that. I mean, these psychos, man, right? But in reality, plane arrived some 9 minutes later than it was scheduled, right? Probably because it took later than it should from whichever area she was flying, right? So the flight arrived only 9 minutes later than scheduled. The service said, noting that some media reports ironically claimed that the aircraft was in a holding pattern for an hour, which is false, by the way. The aircraft's transponder reported good GPS signal quality from takeoff to landing, they also added. So you see, by the way, there is no question about what is going on here. This is clearly false narrative, fake news and the false narrative that was generated by globalists and globalist controlled terrorist regimes in Europe, including Brussels and their so-called media, right? And why they are invested in this operation. This all costs money, isn't it, by the way? This all costs time and money. And why they've been invested in that? To create this false narrative. Because they are planning false flag operations. It's logical. That's the only reason, right? If this was just a random mistake, by the way, this mistake could be stopped on numerous points, right? But no, Brussels actually issued a confirmation of this freaking false fake news, and Sofia did the same, by the way. they said yes, there was a jamming of GPS and they're playing around 1 hour later, and the rest of the nonsense, which is all complete false. So they are planning some massive provocations, by the way, massive provocations, and we should all be informed about it and pay attention to the matter. And first of all, I mean, I hope today Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation will make a separate preemptive, as a preemptive step, separate statement, especially on this topic, because it's just obvious they are planning false narratives. They're gonna brought down plane, by the way, either with the passengers or with some politicians on the board, and they claim that this was a Russian. And they will then say, you know what, they did it, or like they jammed their GPS like recently for Ursula Bursula. So it must be Russia because that's what they do. That's why they are constantly creating these false narratives. Anyways, dear friends, Ursula von der Leyen is making headlines, not just because of this fake news, but also because she basically released information like a few days ago that European states are planning to send their troops on Kiev-controlled territory. And the German Defense Ministry was not impressed with these statements of Ursula. First of all, because Ursula released information that should not be released to public, not now at least, right? And not because the information is false itself, but because information was released earlier than they were expecting. So yes, it is true, I guess, that this coalition of willing is actually planning to deploy their troops into Kiev-controlled territory, and then that would not end well for them, by the way, right? That would not end well for sure. But in this particular case, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius was upset with von der Leyen and criticized her for remarks about developing a plan to send European troops to Ukraine. We have a quote from Pistorius. Besides the fact that the EU has no authority or competence regarding troop deployment, regardless of who or what, I would refrain from confirming or commenting on such considerations in any way, he said. So he did not confirm or reject the information from Ursula that they are planning deployment of troops, this coalition of willing. But he also went to criticize her that it's not her business to talk about this matter anyways, right? Which is interesting, by the way. This row between two Germans, Ursula was defense minister of Germany too, isn't it? Am I correct on that? This gynecologist was defense minister of Germany, by the way, Ursula Bursula, washing machine. And so, yes, there is a clearly, hysteria is on such a level among globalists and globalist-controlled terrorist regimes in Europe that these puppets of the globalists in London, Berlin, Brussels, France, Rome, and the other capitals, they are beginning to bite each other now. These are freaking rabid animals, man. And they're going to eat each other. As hysteria further escalates in Europe, among European so-called elites, they're going to start biting each other hard, man. And they will try to eat each other alive. They are rabid animals, man. That's what European so-called elites are, man, and the globalists, for that matter. And when it comes to Germany, yet again, by the way, Germany is making headlines in regards to Ukrainian crisis because it is heavily invested in this proxy war against Russia, isn't it? After US, by the way, second country with the most money spent on prolongation of this proxy war and most weapons being allocated is Germany, right? And therefore, I'm not at all surprised that leaders of German coalition factions from SDU, or from CDU, CSU, and their SPD blocs have arrived in Kiev yesterday. According to local propaganda outlets in Kiev, they will hold talks on further support for Ukraine and the efforts to And the war, yes, I mean, and the war. They are not interested in ending the war, by the way. They are interested in prolongation of this war. They are heavily invested, German elites, by the way, despite their opposition from German public. Despite the opposition of German public to this policy, still Berlin political class of Germany, that is controlled by globalists, by the way, of course, are heavily invested in this proxy war against Russia. And well, it's only a matter of time, by the way. It's only a matter of time, and they will trigger Moscow to take some action. I don't know when and how exactly, what will be that last drop for Moscow, but I'm afraid these so-called politicians from Germany, political class, will trigger Moscow's harsh response. And people of Germany should know and remember then that yet again it was not Russia that started this. It was their own so-called political elites. They should always keep that in mind, and they will, because after all, IFD is on a rise, isn't it? And one of the reasons why IFD is gaining popularity is that more and more Germans are realizing that their leadership is acting provocative against Russia. They are pushing Germany towards direct conflict with Russia, open conflict with Russia, and they don't want it. Why would ordinary German, by the way, that lives somewhere in Köln or I don't know, in Berlin or Munich or Hamburg, why would that ordinary German want to end up in a war with Russia? Why? So, well, I mean, situation is very difficult, by the way, when it comes to these globalist controlled European regimes, man. They are pushing their own countries and their people towards disaster, and only hope is that people there, locals, will wake up, man. That's the only hope we might have, that local people, local societies in Germany, France, Italy, UK, everywhere, by the way, will wake up. And they need to, by the way, they need to, until it's not too late. I mean, too much harm is done, too much destruction, too much death due to criminal activities of the Western elites. But things might get much more worse, by the way, if European societies would not wake up and now. And they have to, by the way, because they are facing more and more challenges, by the way, that will force them to wake up. For example, on that matter that European societies are facing, or social fabric in these globalist controlled European states, well, we have this information that is relevant, I guess, because US senator, by the way, warns US of impending disaster and calls Washington to withdraw country from the NATO. And this is US senator, by the way. So let's see what's going on there. So United States needs to leave NATO to avoid being drawn into Islamic war in Europe, US Senator Michael Lee wrote on their social network X. This is how he commented on the video from a migrant rally in Germany, where, among other things, the following slogans were shouted: "We will take over Germany by force, replace German laws with the Sharia law, Christians and Jews must convert or leave." This is some of the slogans that were in some demonstration of some sort of radicals, I guess, right, in Germany. And this senator says that if we don't leave NATO soon, we will regret it bitterly, according to him. And by the way, I don't know how stretched German social fabric is. I mean, it is stretched, understand, isn't it? It's understandable. It's not just Germany, but it's France, by the way, UK. I mean, these countries are on the brink of civil war, on ethnic and sectarian lines. It's just too obvious, right? It's just too obvious. Globalists might try to ignore the situation and their control their political class in these countries, but the situation is deteriorating. Situation is deteriorating, and members of our community from Germany can, or UK or France or other European countries, I mean, can share their information how bad their actual reality on the ground is. But well, such a calls, by the way, definitely not help to de-escalate the tensions between the peoples, right, that live in these countries. I mean, to call or to say that they will take over Germany by force, that is quite a provocative stuff to say, right? For such a if any group, by the way, any group, whichever religion or from whichever ethnic group or anything or political group, if any group will say stuff like that here in Russia, they will end up in jail straight away, right? They're not gonna be no freaking discussion. Is it correct move or not? This is a basically a call for terrorism, right? And there's civil unrest and civil war that will endanger everybody, no matter what religion you have, what ethnic group, and the rest, right? What background. So this is a terrorist call that should be stopped immediately, right? And by the way, I mean, yes, situation is in Europe is getting bad and bad, and you know what? European societies are basically facing their consequences of their criminal actions of their elites, right? Because these migrants, refugees or economical migrants, and millions and millions and millions of them, right, end up in Germany or UK or France or Italy or other countries. Why? Maybe one of the reasons is that Western elites, including leadership of these European states, were actively engaged in destruction of the countries all over the world, in Africa, by the way, in Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in the Pacific, everywhere. Maybe that's the reason, one of the main reasons. So European societies now are facing the consequences of the criminal actions that their governments, their elites were committing, in some cases maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, 70, 80 years ago. And also recently, by the way, right? Also recently. And you might be surprised, I don't know, but and societies in Europe, by the way, did not do shit at the time to stop criminal activity of their elites, because of which they are now facing these consequences that threatens civil wars in these countries. And still, by the way, very same societies in these European states do almost nothing right now to stop their criminal elites, right, that are escalating with Russia, dreaming about some sickening ideas, right, and same time destroying the economies of European states. This very same society is still reluctant to do something, right, to challenge these so-called elites, by the way, which is crazy, man. This is, I don't know, and they will face consequences, right, for criminal activity of their elites that they are committing right now against Russia and other countries too, by the way. European societies will face consequences for that too, because every action has a reaction. That's how just things work, right? And I mean, for Europe, maybe it's just too late, man. Europe is just finished. It is what it is, man. Europe is just finished. Migrate from Europe, by the way. Come to Russia. If you are a law-abiding citizen, good, hardworking citizen, if you are respectful, come to Russia, by the way, and you will find peace. But Europe is done, man. It's just too late to do something there, because too much harm, too much damage was done by European so-called elites, and consequences of that gonna be overwhelming, by the way. And I don't think European states are gonna be able to deal with those consequences. No, man, not with such a leadership that they have. Definitely not. And dear friends, if you are thinking that this is some sort of exaggeration on the part of US senator, that there were some demonstrations where some extremist slogans were shared, no, that's exactly what's happening, by the way, all over the Europe, right? And I have another news, for example, from Belgium, on the topic. Belgian official has told critics of her Muslim headscarf to get out of their country, according to video circulating online. Salih Rice, a city council member for the Social Democratic Worit Party, made their controversial remarks during their municipal council season in Brussels, Molenbeek district last Wednesday. If people, and we have quote here, if people wearing headscarves bother you so much, if you don't want to see us anymore, move, go somewhere else, get out. Rice is heard saying in the clip. And by the way, if anyone was harassing her for her religious beliefs, that's wrong. That's wrong, of course, no doubts about that. When the whole face is covered, for security and safety reasons, that it is understandable that that kind of dress is banned. Yet again, for security reasons. Otherwise, it's nobody's business really. But just because of the threat of terrorism, countries are forced to basically ban this full cover, right? Because you just don't know what's going on, right? But if someone wears a headscarf, what is the issue, man? I don't understand. So if she was harassed, too bad, by the way. That's too bad, right? But her to call people to get out of country, this is not really the way to go forward, right? Not really a way to deal with their situation, because this kind of attitude, by the way, will create more aggression in a society, right? You better explain that it's nobody's freaking business what you are wearing, right? Or just ignore. If you have already explained like 10 times and you just are sick and tired of it, then just ignore some freaking morons that are, irritate you. But to say that, what, you don't like it, just F off from this country, that will create more aggression. That will stretch social fabric even further, right? And yet again, dear friends, this is all our consequences of criminal activities, criminal policies of the collective West, right? They destroyed dozens of countries due to criminal activity, according to stats, by the way, that I hear just a couple of days ago on one of their big US channels in alternative media. Based on stats, more than 300 million people, by the way, were forced to flee their homeland, their houses, their homeland, due to criminal activity of their collective West in last several decades alone. More than 300 million people, by the way. Can you imagine that? And many of them went where? They went to Europe, and they went to US. If societies in Europe challenge their criminal elites, like in the past, maybe situation would be different. Maybe those countries in the Middle East, in the Pacific, in Africa, will be in a better place. And maybe there would be no this tsunami of refugees and economical migrants and so on. But their countries were destroyed. They were forced to move. And, who can blame them then if they have to move from their country and start all over? Then they will move in countries where this starting point can be better than somewhere else. And they are going to reach Europe, they are going to reach US. Right? So this is a consequence, by the way. This is a consequence of criminal activities of their European elites, and more consequences to come. Because yet again, no one should expect that European so-called elites can act any way they want, destroy any country they want, kill as many people as they want, and do it with total impunity. No, man, it's not happening. There always is a consequences for everything, and Europe is doomed. That's it. Europe is doomed, by the way. Right? They're gonna be civil wars all over Europe, especially in Western Europe, by the way, on ethnic and sectarian lines. It's gonna get very messy and very bloody and tragic, but consequences. And by the way, if you think that's all for Germany, I have some more news on that country. Well, Polish president, new president of Poland, revives demand for reparations for Germany. So Polish President Karol Nawrocki has renewed demands for reparations from Germany for Nazi-era devastation, insisting that they must be paid in the interest of the justice and the truth. The reparations question has longer strained their Polish-German relations. The previous law and the justice government in office from 2015 to 2023 demanded that Germany pay 6.2 trillion Polish zloty, around 1.5 trillion US dollars, for damage under the Nazi occupation. And at some point, this demand was kind of moved aside by Warsaw, but new president of Poland is renewing this demand, which will stress relationships between Warsaw and Berlin further, of course. And by the way, I don't think Germany going to pay any reparations to Poland. Germany will say we already paid for that, and Poland already get compensations. But Warsaw knows that. But in my personal opinion, reason why Warsaw is yet again coming up with this claim that Germany should pay $1.5 trillion as a compensation is that when Poland, this is their game plan, by the way, part of the game plan that they have to deal with Germany when they will reclaim former Polish territories from Western Ukraine. Because they know once Warsaw will send its troops into Western Ukraine and occupy the territories that used to be part of Poland before Second World War, then Germany, unofficial and unofficial levels, will have a claim on the Polish territories that was given to Poland as a compensation from Germany. And to deal with Berlin in that situation, they will say, you know what? Well, we have demand that you have to pay 1.5 trillion to us for damages, right? Due to Nazi Germany, the occupation of Poland. And we will take this demand off the table if you don't demand from us to give you territories that we took as a compensation after the Second World War. Maybe, and most likely, this is going to be part of negotiating tactics with the Germany, because Poland knows, by the way, they're going to have to deal with the Germany. And Germans know this too, German elites, right? And one of the main reasons of all these talks about militarization of Germany is exactly that. They know they will have issues with Poland, big issues, and in relatively short time, give it like 10, 15 years max, by the way, maybe even 5, but 10, 15 years, that's a max, I think, and Poland and Germany will be at war. Quite sure about it. So this is all connected, by the way. This is all connected. And let me continue with some more news, dear friends. TASS news agency is reporting that Trump will deliver unannounced remarks on September 2nd. He will have some statements today, approximately 2100 hours by Moscow time, or 9 p.m. Moscow time. I don't know what time is going to be in Washington at that moment, or from whichever city Trump will make a statement. Rumors are that it's gonna be 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. in Washington, I guess. Right? Yes, because he's gonna make a statement in Oval Office, so it's gonna be 2 p.m. in Washington and 9 p.m. in Moscow. And well, rumors began circulating on topics that Trump will touch upon in these statements. Maybe he will address tariffs issue once again. Maybe he will attack India again, or maybe he will come up with attacks on Russia. Anything is possible, by the way. Anything is possible. Maybe he will attack Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS. Who knows? There is no point to speculate. Let's see. By the way, 2 p.m. Washington time, 9 p.m. Moscow time. He will make statements, and some members of our community did wrote in the comment sections before, why you pay attention, that not attention to Trump statements. Well, he's the president of US, by the way. He's the president of US, and US is not just a major military and economical superpower in this world, but also US is a country that is still nowadays plays key role in this proxy war against Russia that globalists are waging. So therefore, do we have actually? Can we actually ignore Trump's statements? No, we can't, because sometimes his statements can be quite telling. So it's easy to say just ignore him. His statements mean nothing, but he is a U.S. president, so that's why Russian media pays attention to his statements. Media worldwide pays attention to his statements, and I pay attention to his statements, and majority of our community probably too. We don't want to. Once he is not going to be president of U.S., trust me, I'm not going to freaking pay no attention to whatever he has to say, right? But now he is a U.S. president. So let's see what will be the main topics of his speech. Maybe he will talk about not just the Ukrainian crisis, but also about these trilateral or bilateral meetings that he was promoting between Putin and Zelensky, Putin, Trump, and Zelensky. Maybe that will be discussed too during that meeting. I don't know, but we have this report, dear friends, that from Ushakov, aide of the Russian president, that Putin and Trump have not yet agreed on a meeting with Zelensky. So Russian President Vladimir Putin has not yet reached any agreement with the US leader Donald Trump on a trilateral or separate bilateral meeting with Vladimir Zelensky. Presidential aide Yuri Ushakov told Vegeterka journalist Pavel Zarubin. And this is interesting, isn't it? Because Trump just a couple of days ago, during one of his interviews, stated that he is not sure about bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky, but he's quite sure about trilateral meeting between him, Putin, and Zelensky. So why he was that confident, who knows, right? Maybe he did misunderstood something that the Russian president said, or maybe he was misled by whoever briefs him. I don't know, but well, I have no reason to doubt statements of Ushakov, by the way. I mean, he is quite conservative in his statements and never says nothing that not being 100% authorized by Russian president. He is aide of president for a reason, right? So if he says that there was no actual agreement with Trump about a meeting with Zelensky, or, by the way, Trump meeting with the Trump and Zelensky, then I guess that is the case. And when I saw this news yesterday, by the way, I was a bit surprised. I was thinking, why on earth Ushakov is commenting on this matter now? I mean, what's going on, right? Because all the main focus of the media is on is on Shanghai Cooperation Organization and all the meetings of the delegations and so on. And well, Ushakov is making statement about these bilateral or trilateral meetings. Well, what the hell, right? It's a legit question to ask. Why? Why is that? And there may be, by the way, maybe behind the closed doors, there was some talks between representatives of the White House and the Kremlin, and maybe Kremlin knows that Trump today will yet again attack Russia, yet again attack Putin, because he's not happy that this bilateral or trilateral meeting is not happening, or for whatever reasons. But maybe he will talk about this topic today too. And this was a preemptive step from Kremlin to share the information that there was no agreements to begin with in place about such a meeting. So therefore, whoever will say anything on top of that will be irrelevant, because there was no agreements to begin with. Anyways, dear friends, let me continue with some more news. And well, US continues to assemble a strike group, basically, of cost of Venezuela. And there already are reports that based on the known information about battleships, military vessels that US Navy already deployed towards the Venezuela, we can assume that this strike package of this strike group is about 268 Tomahawk missiles, cruise missiles, as well as amphibious assault ships of landing with capability to basically assist in a landing operation to 4,000 Marines, right? And these numbers are increasing as time goes by the way. US is sending more underwater and underwater vessels, missile carriers. There is already two, I believe, large amphibious assault ships, and at any time, at any given point, who knows, maybe aircraft carrier, one or two aircraft carriers will join in. And that will be big, of course. I mean, 268 Tomahawk missiles, well, it's a force, of course, but they're not going to do much, right? But if aircraft carriers will get in, that will mean US is preparing for a longer term military operations, right? In any case, Venezuelan government is preparing. There is a full-scale mobilization of reservists all over the Venezuela. Situation is escalating, and it seems like military conflict is inevitable. Reports are that US actively using Guyana to escalate with Venezuela to provoke military confrontation. Now, recently, Guyana was asking the whole world not to help to deter Venezuela from military conflict. Now it's Guyana that is on offensive, kind of, because they've been, emboldened by US, right? So unfortunately, yes, it seems like escalation is inevitable. And despite these risks, by the way, this head of Venezuela's government, Maduro, is walking around the country and doing some meetings in open spaces. Is his security service learn anything due to recent history of their military operations that Western countries are conducting? One of the first things what they do, they are eliminating political and military leadership of the country that they are targeting. One of the first things what they do is that they are eliminating political and military leadership that they are targeting. This was an attempt of Israel too when they attacked Iran. They just failed, right? Otherwise, they wanted to kill entire military, political, and religious leadership of Iran. They just simply failed. And yesterday I was listening to one of the reports, by the way, that president of Iran, by the way, Pezeshkian, barely survived the attacks, right? And he was scrolling through the rubble, by the way, to come out of the area where he was at the time of the strike. And there are reports that supreme leader of Iran, religious leader of Iran, was also targeted, right? And this is a tradition. That's what this collective West does, by the way, right? What collective West did to leader of Libya or leader of Iraq, and they wanted to do the same with the Syrian leadership. They just were unable, right? So Venezuela's president should take some little more precautions in order to, if he wants to leave. Otherwise, during the first missile strike that US will conduct against Venezuela, Maduro and whole his entourage may get blew up. But unfortunately, yes, war is most likely inevitable at this point between US and Venezuela, and potentially between Venezuela and whichever neighboring country there will attack them on the orders of Washington. And if you are interested what is Moscow's position in all of this, well, we have a statement of Deputy Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, Sergei Rabkov, who expressed full support and solidarity with Venezuela's government in defending national sovereignty during a meeting with the Venezuelan ambassador to Russia, Jesus Rafael Salazar Velasquez. And well, that's official position of Moscow, by the way. We support Venezuela, right? But also, of course, we all have a question: if it comes to war, what will Russia do? Will Russia send its militaries to assist Venezuelan forces? Will Russia send their military equipment and share intelligence and so on? Satellite intelligence, by the way, is very important, isn't it? Because Venezuelan missiles, anti-ship missiles, need the guidance, right? And Russia can provide such guidance, and maybe will provide such guidance, by the way. Who knows? And Venezuela might be the topic of Trump's statements today also, I mean, potentially, right? Well, I don't know. I don't know where Moscow will stand. Officially, Moscow supports Venezuela's government in sovereignty of Venezuela, but because I don't know a level of agreements, if any was reached behind the closed doors between Moscow and Washington, because I don't know details of that. I cannot predict. Will Russia use Venezuela to revenge on US or not? I mean, it's a wrong words to say. I mean, will Russia assist Venezuela? That's a better way. Will Russia assist Venezuela to revenge all the Russian killed civilians and militaries that died because of the US actions, hostile actions towards Russia? Will Russia assist Venezuela to revenge on US or not? If there is agreement behind the closed doors reached between Moscow and Washington that US will agree on the concessions before Russia and will withdraw from this proxy war, in that case, Moscow will probably, exercise restraint and not retaliate on a state level, not seek revenge on a state level. But if there is no agreements between Washington and Moscow in a place, then then directly or indirectly, yes, Venezuela might receive assistance from Russia, and certain groups will definitely seek revenge on US, 100%. Probably. Only question I have: will Russia on the state level do it or not? But some independent groups from Russia will use any opportunity to revenge on US, by the way, to harm US from now and forever. Because no one gonna forget and forgive tens of thousands of lives of the Russian citizens that was lost due to this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, in which the US played a key role. So it is what it is. few more news, dear friends, on the news segment. Yesterday, Donald Trump once again come up with a post on his Truth Social and attack India, trying to explain to his followers why it's a good idea to attack India and tariff India and so on. And it's not just Trump, by the way, but for whatever reason, his aide, Peter Navarro, is going crazy, absolutely crazy, by the way, assaulting and insulting India day in, day out. I don't know if he was authorized to act this crazy or what the hell is going on. But yes, literally on daily basis, Navarro is giving a couple of interviews to all their media networks in US, so-called media networks, and in every freaking video, in every freaking interview, he's attacking India. And I can give you a short clip, by the way, of one of the such appearances, right, of him on one of their channels. Let's listen to this.
Money from our taxpayers to pay for that. That's crazy. So the road to peace in many ways runs at least partly through New Delhi. It's time for Modi to step up. I have great respect for Modi. I love the Indian people. It was a shame to see Modi getting in bed as the leader of the biggest democracy in the world with the two biggest authoritarian dictators in the world, in Putin.
I mean, this freaking idiot don't even knows what autocracy and their dictatorship is. I mean, he is simultaneously calling Russian and Chinese leadership authoritarians and the dictators. So which one are they? Are they authoritarians or are they dictators? It's a huge difference there. But I'm telling you, by the way, this moron is like a rabid dog on a chain, right? For White House, it seems like, and he was given order to attack India, and he just don't cares what he's talking about. He goes ahead and attacks and attacks and attacks India non-stop. By the way, some freaking I don't know. It's crazy, man.
And Xi Jinping, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure what he's thinking, particularly since India has been in a Cold War and sometimes a hot war with China for decades. So we hope that the Indian leader comes around to seeing that he needs to be with us in Europe and Ukraine and not with Russia on this, and he needs to stop buying the oil. Okay?
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. He has no idea, by the way. I'm quite sure he has no idea about historical ties between Russia and India, about cooperation, historical cooperation between Moscow and New Delhi, how important of the role Moscow play to help India to save its statehood, by the way, right? In 71, for example, and how interlocked, by the way, military industries of the two countries are. West was refusing, dear friends, to provide India with any technologies decades and decades ago, with anything at all, right? And it was only Soviet Union that helped India to build up factories and to get technologies and to be in a position that they are right now, when they are working, by the way, on a fifth generation stealth fighter jet, and they're domestically, based on their own technologies, are building warships, by the way. And all these achievements, not completely, by the way, main driving force was Indian people, of course, and they're determined to defend themselves and to be, to move forward. But Russia definitely assists, right, in that. And as this idiot Navarro is saying that, well, India should be with us, with US, with Europe and Ukraine, not with Russia. I mean, this is impossible, man. This is impossible to comment seriously, man. It's just too crazy. It's just too crazy. And yet again, one of the members of our community jokingly said a few days ago that Trump should be, given a Nobel Peace Prize that he is dreams about for bringing together India and China. And you know what? In every joke there is a part of a truth, isn't it? In every uh, uh, sarcastic phrase, and this is exactly the case with this tremendous hostility that Washington is demonstrating towards India. They actually accelerated process of cooperation uh, between India and China. It's true, by the way, and I was happy to see Russian president, Indian prime minister, and Chinese leader like a friend standing on the sidelines of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, like as friends, by the way, and exchanging opinions, maybe sharing some joke or two, and laughing together. It was great to see, by the way. That's what we need. That's what we need, by the way. And New Delhi and Beijing reach agreement not to treat each other actually as a hostile, but to treat each other as a partners. And this is also a great deal of achievement, I will say. So if anything, yes, Trump deserves that freaking Nobel Peace Prize for bringing India and China together, by the way. That had historically had quite difficult relationships. It's true, by the way, and they still have quite a number of issues that they have to resolve somehow, right? But for a multipolar world, for BRICS, for Shanghai Cooperation Organization, for humanity, by the way, it's a great news that India and China are getting closer to each other. This is very important. When it comes to Russia, India, by the way, we like always had strategical relationships, and it's not going to change. We are not just friendly nations to each other, and on the level of people, by the way, this is also very important. How people see each other, right? And the Russians being seen in India positively, and the Indians being seen in Russia positively. So this goes back in decades and decades and decades, by the way, right? So this is also important, how people see each other. And we see each other friendly, and their governments, of course, have an easier time, by the way, to further enhance this strategical partnership based on this warm relationships, warm attitude of the people of two countries towards each other, right? So Navarro and Trump and the rest of them, by the way, can dream about destroying relationships between Moscow and New Delhi, but it's just not going to work, period, by the way. There's not even discussion there, right? So it is what it is, man. And dear friends, this is, if you think this is all when it comes to US assault on India, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. They're not going to achieve much. This is for sure. But they continue to this attempt to pressure India to attack India, and they are demanding from Europeans to do the same now. So US pushes EU states to sanction India on the same way that Washington did, by the way, that is 50% tariffs. So the US is pressuring EU nations to impose additional tariffs on India, or its continued oil trade with Russia that would be similar to Washington's 50% levies on Indian goods. Sources have told their Axios and their India Today, and unfortunately, there is a certain possibility that maybe some of the European states will go ahead and do this, although probably chances on that is quite low. I mean, it would be absolutely crazy, by the way, on part of Europeans too, to get this hostile towards India, right? So therefore, I don't think, despite the pressure from Washington, Europeans gonna go ahead and actually do the same with India as US does. But Washington tries, by the way. Washington tries, and I'm quite sure Indian leadership pays attention to this situation, and Indian diplomatic missions all over the Europe will do their best to inform the local elites there that it would be a grave mistake on part of Europe if they will go ahead and destroy relationships with New Delhi. But unfortunately, yes, this confrontation continues, and this is truly insane, isn't it? West is attacking, or in this particular case, Washington attacks India and demands the same from Europe for cooperation, formally for business ties between Russia and India, in energy field in particular. And this is happening while US acts differently in regards to China, for example. That is the biggest buyer of Russian energy, bigger than India, by the way. And it's not just China, but European states itself, by the way, buy Russian oil still, to nowadays buy Russian oil and gas. So what the hell? This is not even double standards, by the way. This is not even double standards. This is total insanity. And I mean, as time goes by, I have more and more reasons to believe a recent report from New York Times that was, isn't it, that Trump escalated with India because he's not happy that India refused to nominate him for Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it does look like something personal at this point. Although, yes, there is also argument that while attacking India, Washington basically is sending message to companies all over the world that are planning to move their manufacturing plants from Europe to India, for example, or from China to India, to not do it and to transfer their manufacturing capabilities to US directly. So there can be economical component in that too, but longer this conflict continues and more crazy statements we are hearing from Washington in regards to India, I mean, more and more indicators I have to believe that it's not just economical factors, but also personal. Something personal is going on there, because India should not be treated this way, man, ever, by any country, and especially by Washington that pretend to be ally of India, right? Some 6 months ago, by the way, Trump was bragging about having great relationships with Modi, and now look what they are doing. What the hell, man? And meanwhile, India not just ignores all these threats from Washington, but further enhances cooperation with Russia, by the way, right? More cooperation is underway, deepening ties. Russian market is ready to receive whatever goods India was selling to US, by the way. They can sell it to Russia, by the way. Just bring it here, right? Russian economy is definitely not as big as US economy, but you will get some compensation. And by the way, China is also opening its market for Indian goods. So BRICS countries, Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS countries actually are standing next to India, right, in this crisis situation. And they are definitely not alone. And when it comes to further enhancement in the cooperation between Russia and India, we have this report, by the way, that India wants to build a low-power nuclear power plants, land-based and floating, as well as faster neutron reactors, together with Russia. Alexei Likhachov, Director General of the Rosatom State Corporation, told the journalists. And yes, by the way, it's not just oil and gas, but Russia is cooperating with India in a nuclear energy field also, and for decades, by the way. This is not something new, right? But they're going to be new projects in place, which will benefit both sides, of course. I can give you some details. Documents of their development of the Indian economy include a very ambitious point. This is their transition from their current 9 gigawatts of the nuclear energy to their future 100 gigawatts. This is more than 10 times in the period up to 2047-48. This implies, of course, strengthening and intensifying cooperation, primarily in terms of building our nuclear reactors in India, Likhachov said. And that's going to be done, right? Russia is building, Rosatom, by the way, Russian lead corporation in the nuclear energy field, is a leading company in this world when it comes to build the construction of the nuclear power plants. And there is a great deal of experience between Indian and Russian sides in terms of cooperation. And if India wants, and they do, by the way, more nuclear power plants, Russia is here to help with that, for sure. So yes, cooperation will deepen further, not being destroyed as Navarro, aide of White House, was hoping in that video that I showed a minute ago. And dear friends, this is it for a news segment. For today. Hopefully you did find it informative and useful. And if so, please like the video and leave some commentary. And as I made announcement, dear friends, in the beginning, probably at least for this week, I will do these experiments. I will publish full news segments separately, maybe even a question time separately, and therefore, if this news segment gonna get published on YouTube, I will say for members of our community who will watch this video on the YouTube on recording on YouTube to consider to support my work if they like what they see, if they want to help me to maintain this project. One can donate to this project through PayPal or Boosty platforms, also through crypto, and of course there is a Patreon page where I have a lot of extra content on regular basis, and well, hopefully more members of our community will consider to join to become Patreon for this project and join our Patreon community. And as an alternative, I have a page on Boosty too. If for whatever reason, some members of bigger community on YouTube and Rumble don't like Patreon, all the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. And so yes, that's being said, dear friends, let me join the community chat now. There was no super chat, no donations to highlight during this stream. So therefore, I will take a couple of minutes to scroll through comments, by the way. And if I spot a question that is directed to me, I will react on it. And dear friends, please join our communities on Patreon. That will be a great supporter. So let's see if I spot any question directed to me. I'm advertising Patreon actively for like 2 weeks now, isn't it? And only one new member, by the way. But anyways, I'll continue, and I'm gonna have more and more extra content there, by the way. So it's not gonna be just a support, but also you will have some exclusive content there to watch. Usually it's walk and talk videos, by the way, from Moscow or in whichever area I am. Although I have some other programs too. Yesterday I was unable to do walk and talk because it does take like 2-3 hours to go somewhere, record the video, then come back, upload. Yes, it does take at least like 3 hours, and I don't had that 3-hour time yesterday, so I recorded at home. Second news update, and it was hopefully community did liked it. It was packed with the news. Interesting comment from Trust Jesus. Fantastic. I'm an American. I'm praying that Russia liberates all of that. God bless. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you. answer, dear friends. My apologies if I'm gonna miss your question. I'm just scrolling as fast as, quite fast here. I see a comment with capital letters. I spotted straight away, by the way. Smoky Sally is commenting, US should leave NATO, but Sen Michael Lee must be using that white fluffy stuff like Zelensky and Macron. What a crackhead. Thank you very much, Smoky Sally, for your comment. I don't know who this senator is. I'm not sure I can even recognize him if I see a video or photo of the person. But statement was on interesting topics, so therefore I shared the information. Also, Bade Bald Eagle commenting, leaving NATO will be very popular in their common sense. Yes, I think many people in US will support the idea actually, because I mean, why should they be backbone of this military alliance that is basically serves interests of the globalists and the globalist control regimes in Europe? I mean, why should Americans pay for that? If I remember correctly, Americans break away from Europe and European imperialism, right? I don't think founder fathers of US would ever think that after a few hundred years, like after 200 years plus a little bit, US itself would become an empire. But well, they did break away from biggest empire at the time, right? British Empire. And colonizers, first waves of colonizers, by the way, from all over the Europe mainly, they were dreaming about better life because their life in Europe was miserable. Am I correct? And now their descendants have to pay billions and billions and billions so that globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe will use and abuse NATO in any way and form or shape they want. No, man, it makes no sense. But this is political decision, by the way, of course, and I don't think US will get out of NATO. To be honest, I just don't think so. Michael Kennedy is also commenting, NATO has no future at all. Yes, I mean, it's logical to think that NATO's existence is even questionable because it was created as a deterrent against Soviet Union, and there is no more Soviet Union, by the way, and Russia, objectively speaking, if one is objective, either in US or in Europe, they will realize that Russia is not threat for them, right? If not provoke, Russia will do nothing negative against them. So therefore, what is the point of keeping NATO? To defend from whom? And if from nobody to defend, then well, how this organization is a defense alliance? So this organization is something different then, right? And even recent history told us that this organization is actually a tool in hands of globalists, right? And the neocons. They attacked Yugoslavia, they attacked people of Afghanistan, they attacked people of Iraq, they attacked Libya, right? None of those countries attacked NATO. None of them. So from whom NATO was defending while destroying these countries? You know. So yes, logically speaking, NATO should not have any future because it has no purpose, actually. if it's a defensive organization. But we all know that it's not really a defensive organization. It's a tool in the hands of globalists, isn't it? And it's an offensive tool, not a defensive. And never was defensive, actually. Nidish Kumar is asking, Levan, what happens if Venezuela chokes Panama? Well, I don't think Venezuela will be able to do it. So, I mean, theoretically speaking, anything is possible, but no, Venezuela, I mean, they have very little chances. Let's be real here. Caracas, Maduro's government has very little chances to survive, if any chances at all, right? Because you know how US will operate. They will go after leadership straight away. They will try to kill everybody who will try to organize resistance, right? And they will kill many. That's how Western world always operated. They are killing leadership first, and that's why even Westerners are surprised why Zelensky is allowed to walk around this freely, by the way, or anybody on from leadership of that terrorist regime in Kiev, because even Westerners don't understand how you can leave them alive, because all they see in the West, by the way, is how they are attacking, first of all, leadership of the enemy. And by the way, this is a practice, historically speaking. Always, whenever there is any confrontation, every side was trying to get to leadership of the enemy, to take them out, because that will create destruction among the enemies. Maybe short term, maybe long term, but destruction, right? And you can capitalize on that. So therefore, they will go after Maduro, his inner circle, military leadership, and only question I have, people, by the way, if people of Venezuela will resist, then US will have a hard time. Then they might not even succeed. But if people of Venezuela are so tired, sick and tired of constant struggle, by the way, do it through Western sanctions and sabotage and everything, and do it through poor governance of the government too, by the way. Let's be real here. For the last couple of decades, Venezuela was run quite poorly. Yet again, despite the sanctions and the sabotage, well, I mean, Iran is under sanctions for how long now? But Iran's government does better job. And society in Iran is not in such a difficult situation, even though it is difficult. There are some pressure is there, isn't it, from all the sanctions from the West, and Iranian society have to deal with it. But they are much better off than societies in Venezuela. Both countries have oil, by the way. Venezuela has oil, Iran has oil, right? But Iran's economy is diverse. They can they produce all sorts of things, by the way. It's a well-developed country, one may argue. While Venezuela, very different story. So therefore, I can understand why people can be sick and tired of this freaking Maduro's government, man. He done a very poor job. I don't even understand why he is a president there. I mean, maybe he was elected. Okay, there was elections there. Allegedly, he got majority, and okay. I was not there. I cannot tell, right? But I can understand why people could be so tired after everything that they might not fight to maintain sovereignty of Venezuela, not for government or anybody, but for themselves and their sovereignty. If people will fight, US will struggle to achieve whatever goals they have. Even if they will replace Maduro with someone else, struggle will continue, and eventually they will lose control over Venezuela if people will fight. But if people gonna be reluctant, if people just are too fucking sorry, by the way, too freaking tired, then US will overrun Maduro's regime in a couple of weeks time, and they will establish new regime, and that's gonna be it. Venezuela will get recolonized. But I don't think Venezuela's government or militaries are in a position to, you know, be on offensive. No, they might try, but let's be real here. It's Venezuela and US, by the way. So different leagues there. Uh, dear friends, I see comments. In which religions are mentioned, and I will not take action here because comment itself is not as offensive, but it's just an opinion. But please, dear friends, in the comments, let's be respectful in regards to religion, by the way, because very sensitive subject, right? And let's be very careful there when it comes to religion. We can criticize freaking politicians all day longer. It's we can criticize policies and whatever we want, but let's be very respectful when we are talking about fundamental religions that we have in this world and peoples. When it comes to certain ethnic groups, we should never ever be like negative towards the whole of people. By the way, I mean, it's good people and bad people are everywhere. Am I correct? So please, I mean, this is not that much to ask, really, isn't it? Let's be very respectful because members of our community are from all over the world and from different background, different religion, different ethnicity, and let's be respectful to each other, brother. We don't have to be similar in everything, right? Absolutely don't. We are not freaking programs in a matrix, right? Or we are not robots, let's say it this way. Actually, when it comes to matrix, we might be part of matrix. That was bad comparison. Because serious scientists, by the way, are talking about possibility that everything we know, everything we see, including ourselves, could be sort of a cloud, artificial entity, right? Matrix or whatever we're gonna call it, simulation, basically. And if top level scientists are talking about such possibility, and some of them are grading such possibility at 50%, I mean, if who am I to challenge them, isn't it? They know stuff on science. So yes, we might well be in a freaking matrix, man. Dear friends, my apologies if I will miss your question unintentionally. Absolutely, I'm just scrolling, and if I notice, I notice. If you want to make sure absolutely that your question is not missed, then please use that super chat feature on Rumble. So Mia Street is commenting, what is your thoughts on the pipeline sign partnership between Russia and China? I spoke about this Power Siberia 2 project just like a few minutes ago, isn't it? In the news segment. I think this is good progress of two parties, by the way. negotiations on power of Siberia was taking place for years. For years. First pipeline, power of Siberia, is working also for years, by the way. And straight after that pipeline was launched, talks began about second pipeline. Like you know, Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. Like similar project, idea was similar. Power of Siberia first, and then power of Siberia second, right? And those negotiations stalled, by the way, for years. And the main reason, according to what I read, by the way, the main reason was that Chinese side was demanding to buy Russian gas on unexpectedly low levels, low prices, basically on the prices that we have domestically here inside Russia. And why should Russia sell gas on same price to China? What for, right? China is not part of Russia. So due to some reasons, among them this pricing issue, those talks stalled for quite a while. But it is good that finally legally binding agreement was signed between Gazprom and their Chinese counterpart company to go ahead with this project. And it is good, by the way. It is good because due to crazy policies of their globalist and globalist control regimes in Europe, well, European economies are cut off, basically, almost, not all, but almost completely cut off from Russian energy, and Russia has to divert its gas somewhere, right? One way is to invest big time in LNG, transform this gas to liquefied natural gas and sell it on the world market like that. Costly business, but nevertheless, it's doable, and Russia is becoming one of the, not a major player on LNG market yet, but definitely visible player on energy market. Big players are, of course, Australia and Qatar. US is also up there, and Russia is catching up, right? So heavy investments have been diverted towards the LNG here in Russia. But there is still more gas available, right? So where are we gonna take this gas? And direction is China, right? And even talks are beginning, by the way, that Russia might actually, in relatively near future, began working on the projects together with Mongolia, China, India, to transfer, maybe even Bangladesh, by the way, to transfer gas to Indian coast, by the way, to coastline of Indian Ocean, to India. And I mean, you tell me how huge the market of China and India is. I mean, it's tremendous, isn't it? If Russia wanted to fully guarantee supply for China and India, Russia would not be able to do it, by the way, because demand is just tremendous, right? But there is a great opportunities. There are great opportunities, so it's all good. It's all good. It's a positive development, by the way. I don't want China to become extremely dependent on Russian energy sector. I think that is a danger. But we are not there yet. So therefore, this further deepening cooperation between China and India, China and Russia in energy field is a positive thing, right? Because we need to divert our free gas somewhere, right? So China is there with a huge economy, and in a perspective, we might actually be able to build a pipeline until India. Why not? Actually, although I don't know, LNG might be more reasonable, LNG exports, but because can you imagine to build pipeline from Russia to India, by the way? I mean, that's going to be quite a challenging stuff. But eventually after 10 years, you will probably be able to receive back all the investments, multi-billion investments, to build this massive project, this massive pipeline, and then you will go profitable. You will go in profits, right? anyways, this is topic for experts in the gas and energy, right? Lisa Holt is commenting. Levan reports I have seen, yes, Azerbaijan met with Putin, noting reported home because insignificant, not reported, nothing reported at home because of insignificant at this point. Um, I'm gonna check again. By the way, right now I'm gonna check. Maybe something was reported there these minutes while I'm online. Uh, I'm gonna find out somewhere. Some reporting has to be. I mean, maybe mainstream media didn't pay much attention to, but how? It is important. I think if such a meeting did take place, Russian media would report about it. I mean, all the media outlets because of their escalation between the sides, right? I don't think Russian media will ignore that. Uh, why would they? I mean, it is something that people are asking questions right now, dear friends. I'm seeing breaking news that Russian armed forces liberated Fyodorovka settlement in a DPR. So there is a positive news there. And there is many other news, but this rest of the informations will go in today's second update, dear friends. So I don't know, Lisa. Maybe sources where you see information about meeting between Putin and Aliyev were mistaken because I don't think Russian media outlets will ignore such a meeting. But yet again, you just never know. Thank you very much for your comment, Lisa. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, we want our lands back from China, then we can have a pipeline from Russia. Nidish, at least New Delhi and Beijing are talking, right? There is no, for quite a while, there was no incidents on the border for more than a year now, isn't it? It's quite there. Uh, Sides clearly are working on improving relationships, and this is good thing. This is good thing. Uh, when it comes to whenever situation is when it comes to territories, it's a very difficult topic to resolve, right? Very difficult topic. Hopefully, New Delhi and Beijing will manage to reach some sort of agreement on the matter, right? I would love China to find a compromise, right? Uh, and to why they need Tibet, by the way, why they are occupying Tibet. Let them get free completely and let the India have its territories back. I mean, that would be my take, right? But yet again, no one is asking me. It's going to be very difficult, if even ever possible to resolve the issues. But well, while both of you, India and China, agree that you have unresolved issues on the border, uh, you can still cooperate on some other issues, right? Let's agree not to escalate in the difficult areas, right? Sort of freeze the situation, at least for now. Maybe in the future we will find some ways to resolve their stuff, but let's cooperate on other issues, right? That will benefit both. Maybe this is the solution uh, in such difficult situations, and I guess India and China are on that page exactly. You know. Interesting comment from Alonuts Popescu. Don't you want to live with Europe in prosperity? Do you want to work for China with its Asian mentality? When China will be first economy, they will not make any distinction between EU and or Russia. Well, when it comes to Europe, by the way, who is escalating? We wanted to have a good relationships with Europe, isn't it? It was Russian president. I mean, in the West, I don't even know if people are informed about it. I mean, majority at least. But it was a Russian president that was pushing this idea of united economical sphere, isn't it? From Lisbon, that is Portugal, by the way, to Vladivostok, that is far east of Russia. Some 2 decades ago, by the way, right? It was a Russian president, 15, 20 years ago, by the way. Russian president was very much proactive in terms of enhancement of the cooperation with Europe. Very proactive, right? And he himself said that Russia will even open to idea to join NATO. But Russia was refused, by the way. Collective West, Western ruling class, globalists, neocons, and so on, whoever is pulling the strings, they decided, you know what? No, we don't want we want no cooperation. We're going to designate Russia as an enemy, and we're going to go hostile. That was the answer from the West, and they did exactly that. It's about what Europe decided, right? And they had every right, by the way. They want to treat us as a hostile. Okay, by the way. I mean, okay, Europe's decision, and I mean European elites, by the way. People was not asked, of course. But it's their decision, and they have to, and the European countries now have to live with the consequences of that decision. When it comes to us, by the way, well, we have a good relationships with China, by the way. We have a great relationship with India, and we will continue to develop our relationships with other countries. And you know what? Chinese gonna treat us as a majority of us as a Indo-Europeans, and they might, you know, because we are majority of us Indo-Europeans, right? As you are in Europe, maybe some Europeans are so badly educated that they think they are different race than us, but in reality we are one freaking race, right? But by the way, China was an empire and civilization way before people in Europe stopped running around naked in the forest, right? Just to have understanding what we are talking about. China has deep roots in history, in culture, traditions, and to be honest, China was never actually too hostile to anybody, really. They were always about business, right? They were very good at it. But even during their times when China was their most prolific, I mean, leading empire force in their area, they was not that hostile, actually. So, you know, just to make sure that everything is okay, Russia and India will always cooperate to kind of keep China in check, in case in 20 years time some hothead gonna end up being a leader in that country. But you know what, we are ready to deal with the situation, with whatever challenges gonna come up. And now well, we don't really need Europe for anything. We just don't, man. And if you want to live in a prosperity, then come to Russia. That's my answer, because Europe is doomed. Unfortunately, by the way, this is a decision. This is going to be a consequence of crazy policies of the European elites. Europe is doomed, man. And if Europeans want to live in peace and prosperity, think about migration to Russia, man. That's my answer. And don't worry about China. You know, somehow we will manage to do business in a manageable manner, by the way. And we are not alone. We have friends all over the world, by the way. This world is much bigger than collective West, right? I mean, Westerners are forgetting about it time to time, maybe because of the arrogance or something else, but they think, without West there is nothing. But in reality, well, West is just a tiny part of the rest of the world, by the way. And when it comes to civilizations, well, I mean, if you want civilizations, go east, man. I mean, very, very old civilizations. You want that? Learn something about it, go east. In the West, you're not going to find one. That's factually accurate, right? So it is what it is. Even Greece, by the way, compared to Eastern civilizations, is fainting. And Greece is first European civilization, right? Then become, then second was, one might argue, Roman Empire, but they both faint in regards to Eastern civilizations. But okay, this is not historic. This is not a channel about history, right? So therefore, dear friends, if I may, I will end this a live stream now. We had a good conversation, isn't it? Hopefully, you did like a news segment, and therefore, dear friends, if you can, please like the video and leave some commentary, and also if you can, if you like my work, and if you can to help me to maintain this project, well, all the links you can find under this video in description box and in the pinned comment for that. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, and see you tomorrow. Bye.